guys, look at how pretty this is. I really want to record here, but it's looking like some snaky habitat. You guys look, and I'm in flip-flops and a dress, of course. Of course, let's make sure there's no snakes. Hi! Okay, let's pick the angle. Today, I want to talk about something that's possibly a little bit more obvious if you're already an environmentalist and you know a thing or two about restoration. And I'm going to talk about these things generally and not really use statistics in this video because obviously I'm sitting in the middle of a jungle. I don't have my computer on me right now, and we're just going to chat about it. To talk about this, we first have to go back. Maybe I should tell you we're going to be talking about barren land, to the first settlements of human history and why initially humans started clearing land for all sorts of reasons, to build settlements, to farm, to have pathways that didn't have animals in them or that you could see predators very easily for human security. And typically humans would build a little bit of a patch of cleared land in an area, and we would live there for a few months, farm for a season, and we were nomadic, so we would move after that. That would allow the rest of the surrounding habitat that wasn't degraded to come back in and essentially replenish the area that humans had decimated, and the environment could recover. But now, as human societies have persisted, as humans have become far less nomadic and many people stay in the same area for almost all their lives, our cities are hundreds of years old, we have areas that are essentially barren of all wildlife and majority of nature. And we can think about it in the obvious way of cities, that obviously most cities do not have forests, most cities are pretty decimated of plants in general, or maybe they have a few trees on the side, but in no way is it a connected habitat such as the one that I'm sitting in, where there are trees in many places and plants connect to trees, and there's a lively soil base that has lots of microbes that is cycling nutrients, and such as this, with lots of insects, lots of reptiles, lots of mammals, the whole shish kabang, lots of food to find, lots of fruit, things as this. The whole shish kabang, I can't remember the last time I said that. As humans have become more advanced, we've created more advanced forms of clearing areas. So you can think of things such as large machines for cutting down trees, large tractors for clearing out ground plants such as grasses and tillers that rotate the soil to remove weeds. You can think of things such as burning tactics to essentially poison a certain plant or a certain animal. We can also think of more ways that land has been cleared in our society. Mining is a pretty big one in our society, honest. A lot of nutrients such as phosphate, nitrogen, those are mined from the soil usually. You can also think of metals such as copper, rare earth metals that are mined from the soil as well. And you can also think of things such as coal, oil, natural gas that are also mined. A lot of these industries are very hidden to the human eye because they're typically done in areas that are fairly wild, have large reserves of this certain nutrient hidden deep beneath the soil, meaning that this nutrient has been building up under the soil in excess over a large period of time, which essentially means that the habitat has been producing excess of this nutrient and sending it down into the soil. And so this habitat has not been disturbed and has been very rich and excessive and abundant in nutrients that it's sending down into the soil. And so a lot of times when we think of mining, we think of an area that is largely degraded of any sort of plant life, these huge holes in the ground, these toxic nutrients running off into the water. But what this area was before is actually makes these scenes far more sad to look at, because these are typically areas that were extremely wild before and had supported large, healthy, connected, and abundant life forests before. The point that I want to eventually come to with this, and not just with mining, but with farming, with humans just clearing areas for living and taking residence in, now more than ever before in the history of Earth, we have more land, a higher percentage of land on Earth, if you just think about it intuitively, that has gone completely devoid of the plant life that had once lived there. And unfortunately, also a lot of that comes from our farmlands. Our farmlands should be some of the areas that have great natural abundance, have healthy soils, have organic matter that's in the soil supporting the growth of these plants that eventually nourish our world. Industrial farming and the excess production of these large row crops and of solely planting one plant, that doesn't happen naturally in nature, so you really have to force that to happen. And by forcing that to happen, you really have to clear out the land before you put in your row crop. This has far more lasting effects than people really realize, and they also have a lot of effects that are not really things that people would think about necessarily per se. So I want to talk about those effects that barren land has not only on the earth, but also on our human populations, also on our animal cousins, and just the healthiness of the environments that we are currently now living in and that currently occupy this world. When we have more barren lands, these lands obviously are not productive. These lands are devoid of nutrients because they are largely exposed to the sun without plants growing and cycling and dumping their leaves off and supporting the microbes in the soil. These soils are often devoid of a lot of microbes, of a lot of fungus that are essentially the microbes in the soil are the things that are the catalysts that allow nutrients to go from the soil to the plant. And so these are fundamental to every ecosystem that you are in. When soils are exposed to sun, a lot of these funguses, a lot of these microbes require wet, moist places, or cool environments, have some shade, have some water to support the life. And when they are exposed to sun, it essentially dries up and bakes off a lot of these fundamental microbes and funguses that are needed to support our environment. And so just in that fact alone, nutrients cannot be transferred from the soil to the plants. When you don't have proper pathways from the soil to the plant nutrients, you are having to add copious amounts of nutrients to get those plants to absorb any nutrients at all. Fundamentally, these ecosystems are just not as productive. They cannot possibly support as many plant lives when they are degraded. They also cannot support animals in these areas. The animals that can survive in residential environments are typically things that are scavengers, such as cockroaches and rats. And what are these things? These are things we obviously don't want in our house, so we throw chemicals at them to kill them, thus just tarnishing the environment more. Let's also keep in mind that if we were to take these animals such as cockroaches and rats and put them in a healthy environment, there wouldn't be an excessive problem with huge growth of population of these animals because they have natural predators in the environments. All sorts of things eat these bugs and these smaller rodents. Let's move on. So despite the fact that these barren environments cannot nourish humans properly, we then have the fact that being in a barren environment and being in an area that is essentially empty of beautiful plants, that doesn't have beautiful insects such as bees or butterflies, grasshoppers, mantises, a diversity of flowers, a high amount of fruits that you can nourish yourself off of, just an area that's just beautiful to walk in and beautiful to look at and beautiful to be in, areas that are shady like this where you can sit outside and be comfortable even on a hot day, making sure there's no snakes under me. This habitat's very snaky, bro. I'm like low-key sketched out, but it's chill. Snakes are nice. I'm trying to tell myself that animals that are protective are not going to attack me for no reason. And I'm sitting here with good vibes. I'm not kicking around. I'm not hurting anybody. But each of these little sticks, it's like, oh my god, that could be a snake. Ah, that could be a snake. Ah! You guys know I'm a certified scaredy cat. We need to refilm that video of how to overcome being a certified scaredy cat. I think I'm gonna do that soon. These have very great effects on people, and just being able to go outside and be outside and feel happy with where you live is something that's very important for humans. And also evolutionarily, we grew up around fresh air, around water, around being able to swim in natural bodies of water, around being able to go for walks in the forest, and around being with animals. And those are things that are biologically wired into us to live with. There's been a huge, huge change in the way that humans live. And not only that, being in a healthy environment encourages people to exercise more, it encourages people to get outside, it allows people to take in more fresh air, be away from pollution, something that is greatly affecting our societies today. And Yes, I think being able to touch soil, being able to be in water has grounding effects and effects on your body that lessen your stress, lessen your inflammation, and all of these things. Look, it even looks like I have a snake here. Oh my God, my hair. I joke that my hair is full of little snakes that hold the secrets of people who tell me things, because I never tell secrets. But anyways. Oh, the sun is peeking through. It's right on top of me now, and I'm really starting to sweat. As I was just speaking about shade. So despite the nourishing effects, despite the intellectual and well-being effects on humans, it also has obviously effects on our climate and our environment that impact humans. One, barren land is typically in some way, shape, or form polluted, because to get land barren, you have to in some way push it so far outside of its natural cycles that it can no longer recover for a long period of time. Usually that's done with fire, with intense tilling, or cutting of the tree habitats such that the soil has been impacted, or with chemicals, obviously. Chemicals. No, I fucking hate chemicals, you guys know. In and of itself, contaminates soil, contaminates water, contaminates air. All of that, negative effects on the human health. That also affects the animals that live off of these environments. And animals are so sensitive, they usually cannot transverse large areas and move. They usually die with their habitats. And that is something that has been really, really hard for me to accept in my environmentalism. And unfortunately, healthy habitats can only support so many animals per square foot, per square meter. So a lot of these animals we have lost. When we have barren lands, when we take plants out of the land, we change the microclimate of that area. Plants in general, trees especially, hold a lot of water. Not only in their leaves, in their bright green, bushy, beautiful leaves, but also in their trunks, and also deep in the roots as far as their roots go down. The amount high a tree is approximately how much root it has below the soil. And these soil columns in habitats are extremely, extremely important. How far large roots go down, because those roots are the types of roots that bring up nutrients for all the plants. And a lot of our nutrients this day and age get stored very, very deep in the soil column. And same with the water. For the plants to be able to access these water tables and these reservoirs of water in the dry months and in temperate regions, they need to be able to be around other plants that have longer roots that bring up the water for these plants. Plants also are important for not letting nutrients leave a certain area and not letting water leave a certain area. So when we get rain in one area, especially in a barren area now, that water will run off the surface and go into, I don't know, maybe human's drainage system, maybe a nearby lake or river. When water is moving off of a barren land, it takes with it lots of nutrients, any sorts of other chemicals that could be living on this land, a lot of debris as well, and this is what we call runoff. But when it gets into our natural water reservoirs, like our groundwater or our rivers or our lakes, it also contaminates this area, because too much nutrients in a river throws off the balance in that river, such that it makes more algae and more microbes grow faster. And these can oftentimes take up the oxygen availability in the water and harm the fish, harm other things that are dependent on the oxygen in the water. But coming back to the climate, when we have areas that are completely barren of any plants and don't have any trees on them especially, they get far more hotter in the day. This hotness increases evaporation. Evaporation increases, the evaporation doesn't go around to the plants that are living in the environment. It instead goes up higher and moves away from the environment, oftentimes returning in areas that with higher humidity. And you can think of the effects of this, such as we get more rain over ocean environments now, and in areas with higher humidity, such as the tropics. And not only that, it also makes our storms more erratic, our storms stronger. We are seeing higher tropical storms. The last point that I want to make on these barren lands is when we deplete these lands of their natural plants that are there, we also lose the base of seeds that is replenishing on these lands. That has created in our society a shortage of seeds, but not only has it created a shortage of seeds, because now we have more seed distributors than ever on Earth, as there are more people, but it's created created specifically a problem with localized seeds. And seeds that are localized to a specific area are very, very important because they make tiny little evolutionary changes in the evolution of the plant year after year to make them more adept at living in the environment that they are living in. Whether that be slight changes to being able to take in more or less water, slight changes to the nutrients that are available in the soil, the slight changes to the different sort of weather patterns that there are. But the fact that we have so much barren land, we do not have a large portion of the seeds that used to be repopulating these lands every single year. They're not something that we can easily get back, even if we were to just buy as many seeds as possible and dump them all over the earth. We've still already lost years and years of hyper-localization of these seeds that used to be so well adapted to a certain area. And it will take us years and hundreds of years to get that hyper-adaptation back into the seeds. The amount of genetic changes that are happening in the seeds and in the plants of the things that we are reforesting are making the environment so much less healthy than they used to be. And that's the thing with reforestation, and especially when lands get to the point where they are so barren, and then trying to restore them, they will not be back to those pristine habitats, maybe ever. Certainly never in our own lifetimes. And you may say to this, then what's the point of trying to restore these habitats? Well, the point is that restoring these habitats combats every single one of the negative things that I just talked about. It starts the hyperlocalization of seeds, helps start to mitigate some of the pollution that there is. It helps to keep the water in certain environments and help the hydraulic cycle. It keeps the area cooler. All of these things, and even more things that I'm forgetting to list right now, that are so important for our habitats and just the habitability of the environments that we live in. Genuinely, what would be the best thing that an individual person could do for the environment? It would be to enroll themselves in planting more plants and listening to what an environment needs. You have to really take a second to listen and to learn about the ecosystems that you live around and to understand what kind of plants can live in that area, what kind of plants thrive in that area, what's going to help the ecosystem most in that moment. So for example, right now I'm in Costa Rica. If I were to plant something that I would plant in California, typically in this environment, it would die. It would do not good here. It would most likely have a more negative impact on the environment than a positive impact on the environment. And so you really have to look at what plants are good for your habitat, what plants will make you feel good as well. Maybe not every plant. I think that is the beauty of our current system right now, is we have access to so many different types of plants, and you can find plants that make you happy. I'd encourage every single person watching this to do for the environment. It would really be to learn about your environment and to take action into planting and being a part of your ecosystem, and to being a steward of healing your ecosystem and starting these natural cycles again. Because they need help. They're out of balance now. That's the thing with barren land, is it's now so far out of balance that it would take hundreds and hundreds of years to go back to what it used to be. But that's the beautiful thing about humans and about how much we've learned and about how much knowledge is available online about these habitats, is that we can help speed up the process of getting these ecosystems back on track, to being able to support animals, to being able to be abundant and healthy and connected with the rest of the world. I love you guys, and maybe I don't love you guys, I'm not really sure, but if I don't love you guys, the environment for sure loves you, because she supports your dirty fucking useless ass, even if you don't deserve it. And yes, anyways, with that, you should be nice to her, because she's been so nice to you, and she's literally the reason that you're here. And so yes, I give you a kiss for her, but you better do something for her in return, okay? Okay, I trust you. Okay, kisses.